you're destined to become a chef, the food-centric city of New Orleans ain't a bad place to grow up. John Currence was born and raised there by a family that loved to cook and loved to travel. While living in the UK, they often took trips around Europe, sampling its many cuisines. After cooking jobs around the South, Currence settled in Oxford, Mississippi in 1992 and opened City Grocery. It won him the 1992 James Beard Award for Best Chef in the South. Welcome, and thank you so much for this lovely meal.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us, you call breakfast the forgotten meal.
Well, it's more the neglected meal, I think.
It's not forgotten here on this table.
Well, no, and it's not ever really forgotten, but chefs just kind of neglected it. We sort of shuffled it off to Cracker Barrel and Waffle House, I felt like.
Right.
And it was really a visit to Andrew Carmelini's La Conda Verde that made me realize about 15 years ago, it's like, wow, why aren't we really applying more thought to this meal? It just seems like a freebie, and the segment's wide open.
So tell us what we got on the table here.
Well, we start with, this is actually sort of oddly chronological. This coffee cake is a banana pecan coffee cake that was meant to mimic one from a bakery right across the street from our house. At about once every 2 weeks, my mom would give my brother and I a couple of bucks to go get something to eat, and that coffee cake was my favorite. The buttermilk biscuits and tomato gravy were just a staple at my grandmother's table. This sort of pile of breakfast meats that we have here, that breakfast sausage is actually my grandfather's recipe. He was the sausage maker in their community when they had hog slaughter, and so that was the sausage that he made and served out of his little country store. The Low Country skillet, which is our smoked sausage and andouille and shrimp, is just one of those one-pan dishes that folks just love, because I think no matter what anybody says, they love to mix their food up and just sort of shovel it in as quickly as possible. The shakshuka down in the pan down the table came from a trip to Israel that I took with Michael Solomonoff, which is one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given in my life.
This is all so delicious. For you, I mean, when did you really become interested in food? I read a quote from you that said it was literally out of the birth canal you were interested.
Well, I mean, it's New Orleans, and so you're either interested or you're exiled, I think. It was such a huge part of my life, whether it was at hunting and fishing camp, whether it was my mother, who traveled internationally with my father on business, who was fascinated with the kitchen and would bring the foods home of the places that she had been, whether it was India or Cairo or Western Europe, and recreate these things. But I mean, food was all over my life.
Your first memory of food was the smell of, was it your grandmother's chocolate chip cookies?
My great-grandmother's.
Your great-grandmother's.
Yeah, that my daughter is actually named for. And it wasn't intentional, but it's a beautiful name. Her name is Mamie. So that's how we arrived there. But yeah, that was my very first food memory.
I heard that you are said to have a breakfast empire in the South. Tell us about your latest book and how that adds to your empire.
Empire is kind of terrifying, considering the current state of affairs.
You're a benevolent overlord.
You big bad breakfast, and you're in Alabama. You're thinking about South Carolina. You're in Mississippi.
In Florida.
In Florida.
Yes, in Charleston, we're building. In Charleston, it's been a long process, but right. Really, really excited about that store coming along, and now actually going back and doing a restaurant that I've wanted to do for years with our chef from Snack Bar, Vishwesh Bhatt, who is one of my dearest friends in the world, who's from Gujarat, and so we're gonna put together sort of a Southern influenced Indian street food restaurant.
Wow.
And so you guys and you all are the first to know about that.
Well, I'm going to have you sign our dish. And as I do, ask you if you could have this meal with anyone, past or present, who would it be?
Well, that's an easy answer for me right now. I just lost my mother, who was one of the greatest influences in my entire life. And so to have one more meal with her would be the greatest opportunity in the world. I love nothing more than cooking breakfast with my daughter and my wife sort of dragging out and having coffee. And so those are my greatest joys in life. So, I mean, I think the three most important women in my life would be at breakfast, no question about it.
Excellent. A phenomenal meal as well. Chef John Currence, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And for more on Chef Currence and the dish, you can head to our website at cbsthismorning.com.